Hi, everybody, and welcome to SPTV Live on a Wednesday night. Wanted to welcome my guest for this evening, the lovely, back by popular demand, Katherine Olson.
Hi!
Katherine, you have no idea how many comments and things I get. People going, "When's Katherine coming back on? We really like her. When is she going to be speaking to you again?" So, yeah, welcome back. You are
Thank
in
you.
high demand.
Yeah, I like doing this stuff. It's fun.
It's good to have you back. And yeah, I know that Aaron is probably going to be going live at some point with the court report. So, if it clashes, it clashes, but we'll just carry on through. Anyone that wants to jump over to that can always watch on catch up and stuff. We'll try and keep this probably to about an hour, I suppose, is generally what is about.
That sounds good.
Yeah, good. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about OSA, the Office of Special Affairs, and their tactics that they use to try and suppress and discredit SPs, people like you and I. And so I thought it'd be good to get you on to talk about that. And yeah, go on from there. There's a couple of other things if we've got time to catch up on. Housekeeping wise, everyone please make sure you press the like button, subscribe, bell, all of that stuff you guys already know. We will say again.
I said send you some coffee.
Buy me a coffee, of course. Yeah, always welcome. But
I was thinking to do something. I wanted to set up a similar thing for aftermath donations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we can go over it. I just thought of that after actually, but maybe we can go over it afterwards. You can tell me how to set up your buy me a coffee thing, and I'll set up a donate to the Aftermath Foundation, because anyone who's watching, I would like to any donations that anybody wants to give, like they do on these lives sometimes, or a lot. I want everything to go to the Aftermath Foundation, because that is very important, and it's a key reason why I'm sitting here right now talking to you. So
yeah, absolutely. There's a way, I haven't looked into it, but there is a way of doing a charity stream. So this isn't set up for this one, but YouTube take 30% of any super chats or anything like that you go through YouTube. That's why Buy Me a Coffee is better, because they don't take a cut, or they don't take 30%. But you can do like a YouTube charity stream where they don't take any cut and the money goes straight to the charity. So I'll look into that. Maybe the next one we can do so that it's all set up so all the money goes straight to them. But yeah, I think also, just before we crack into it, I don't know if you saw the video, but I'm doing a bit of a challenge to try and raise awareness, because it's
mental health awareness month. Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, I'm currently at 4,500 subscribers, and if I hit 5,000, I'll donate $100 to the Aftermath Foundation. If I hit that before the end of the month, I do have like a second tier that I will unveil if I hit it, that will be another big donation, but we'll see if we hit 5,000 first, and we'll go from there. But yeah, the best way of supporting channels like mine, like Aaron's and so on, is engagement. So comment, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, like, and all of that. We will take questions, do Q&A and stuff. We'll probably, unless it's particularly pertinent, we'll probably save it till the end, but do put in any questions you've got in the comments, and we can go through them and as we go, and go from there. Sound good?
Great. Sounds good.
So I think let's frame this maybe with a bit of history. So I know a lot of people watching will know what OSA is, but maybe should we give a bit of background? What is OSA? What is the Office of Special Affairs, and where it came from? Do you want to maybe start with that, Katherine, or do you want me to crack on?
Yeah, I mean, it just to give a very abbreviated explanation. I mean, it started with the Guardian's office, and started with the Guardian's office, and when they did the whole Operation Snow White, the whole government infiltration thing, then that got disbanded, and a lot of people, some of them went to what's now called the Office of Special Affairs. Some of them went to other organizations, like some of them went to like Association for Better Living and Education. They went like all over the place. But like a lot of the key people went to the Office of Special Affairs, and specifically the International Office of Special Affairs, which I worked in the same building as them for 25 years, and I knew every single OSA staff member.
Yeah.
So, but you don't know, like when you're working there, you don't really know what they do, because you're not briefed on any legal anything unless there's like some big legal win or some like big case that was one that's like okay to like sort of tell people about, then you might get a small announcement about that. But otherwise, you don't really know what they do until you are out of Scientology, and then you find out what is really going on, and you hear about how
because they're doing it to you.
yeah. Except I've actually been very lucky, and nobody's done anything to me. No one's tried to contact me. No one's done anything weird with any of my family or anything. I think they just washed their hands of me and just decided I wasn't worth it. And
they've got lots of
I think
stuff on their plate
and they're also way too busy. So I'm like, I'm very small fish. I'm like a minnow. So
yeah, same. I mean, same for me. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something happens at some point, but at the moment I'm counting myself lucky. But it's interesting what you said about not really knowing when you're in the church what OSA do, because it was the same. So Mark Pinchin is the director of special affairs at the London org. There's actually 3 of them. There's the Day, the Foundation, and then there's someone else. So there are 3 people basically that are in OSA, and it was weird because they were never around. Like Mark was never around. He wasn't there in his office all day. He was obviously out doing stuff, and he would pop into a staff meeting every now and then. But the only stuff we ever really heard about what they were doing was always the outreach programs like Truth About Drugs.
Yeah, or safe pointing. Did you ever hear about all the safe pointing, making friends with the police, the city officials, whatever? That's a very usual thing.
And you learn not to ask questions, right? So there's one thing I remember. Mark came into a staff meeting once and said, right, guys, it's really important that we push the Sunday service. Everyone that can go to Sunday service needs to go. It's really important. And you don't ask why, because you just don't. You just do whatever they say. And it turns out the reason they were doing that is because they were trying to win this court case that actually has been ongoing until January or February of this year, where they finally won it, where they wanted to be recognized as a place of public worship, which gives them some sort of tax exemption here on some extent. And as part of that, they had to prove that Sunday service happened every week and it was open to everybody to come and attend. And that's why they were pushing it so hard. But they didn't tell us that in the org. They just said you have to go, and you just go, okay, fine, you do what you do. But they're very
I don't know about you guys, but when I was in Columbus, all the staff tried to avoid going to Sunday service as much as it possibly could, and we'd all be told to go, and we're like, no, we want to keep working. It's like a waste of time. It's boring. It was like, to us, it was a total waste of time.
And in London as well, the majority of staff, they live in London now, but when I was there, they mostly lived down in East Grinstead. So they would commute up every morning and they would study and everything at St. Hill in the evenings and weekends. So for them to come into London just to go to Sunday service on Sunday, it's just not, they wouldn't do it. There's no point because they could go to Sunday service at St. Hill, or, they wouldn't make that special trip. So I don't think I ever went, but I was pressured to, because I was one of the few London staff that actually lived in London, which is funny.
Yeah, and just going back to like what OSA does and how they follow people and the whole fair game thing. When I've told this story on other channels, but in 2007, when my mom and my sister came to visit me when I was working in LA and I was in the Sea Org, and they were trying to get me to leave, which didn't go over too well. I didn't end up leaving for another 12 years, but that's a whole other story. But right after that, I was seeing somebody from OSA like all the time, the external security chief, international, who is her name is Kirsten Pedersen. And so I was seeing her all the time, and I was like amazed at the level of information they had about my mom. Like, they knew who she was with, they knew who she came to LA with, they knew who she was hanging around with. And I'm just like, and I just remember kind of in passing, because everything was like, it was very traumatic experience, the whole thing. So I just remember thinking a few times, I'm like, wow, they really know, they find out a lot of, like, I wonder how they do this. Like, I guess they have PIs and stuff. And I kind of wondered about it a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. They're just trying to handle the situation, you know, that had been created, because it was a whole thing.
And also you think it's for the greater good, right? Whatever they're doing is because they're trying to progress and protect Scientology.
Yeah, they're protecting Scientology. That's like the purpose of OSA, ostensibly, is protecting Scientology, and that's like at the expense of, you know, people's reputation and sometimes livelihood, and in the case of Masterson, protecting like a total criminal, as far as I'm concerned, even though whatever, the verdict's not out on that. But
do you know what, I'm throwing this just in there, we haven't talked about this beforehand, but do you know what the VFP of OSA is, the valuable final product? So for those of you in the comments, basically every division in an organization has a valuable final product, which is basically the goal of that division. You know, whether it be selling books or whatever it is, like the purpose of that division. Do you know what OSA's?
Well, I know that one of them is protection of Scientology. I think one goes along the lines of like religious recognition across the globe of Scientology, like in every country. They have several.
I know one of them, one of their statistics is attacks or critics dampened, or like
something like that. They never announced any of their stats. Like, even like I said, I worked in the same building. I went to staff meetings, like base-wide staff meetings, where OSA would be there and they would make announcements and stuff, but it was all very downplayed and very generalized.
Because there's N theta, you're talking about attacks against Scientology and stuff that's bad news. So in Scientology, it's all about talking about the good stuff and the wins and the success stories, and anything that could be critical, or even if the story is, you know, handling some horrible black PR situation that is a win for Scientology, you still wouldn't talk about it because it's on the edge of, you know, well, this critic said this horrible thing about Scientology, and you don't want to spread any bad news or N theta.
Yeah, and they especially don't want you to know, when you're in Scientology, and specifically in the Sea Org, they don't want you to know what ex-Scientologists are saying and what happened with them, or any of their like story, or even that they're gone. Because I'll tell you a story. When the Stand League website was first established, I happened to be having lunch with the person who worked on that website, and he was telling me about it, because it was shortly after the whole thing had happened with my mom and my sister, and they were asking me quite a bit of stuff that I didn't know how to answer. And he was like, oh, you should check out this website, this new website that we just put up. It's called Stand League. And anybody can check this out. It's basically their Scientology's like propaganda website against all the people that are speaking out. And so I went and I checked that out, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool, right? And I was like looking at and reading stuff and whatever. And then a few months later, I went to check it again, and my access was blocked. So they actually don't even want Sea Org members to see anything on the Stand League website, because that's going to tell you, it's going to tell you all these executives who blew, like, you know, Mike Rinder. Basically, everybody knows about Marty Rathbun inside the Sea Org, and they all know about Mike Rinder too. But not everybody knows about other people that have gone and what happened with them, or what Scientology is saying their story was, or whatever. And I also remember I was talking to they have a magazine called Freedom, and I was talking to the editor of the Freedom magazine, who's an OSA staff member. And I remember, because the Freedom mags used to come out all the time. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
Yeah.
But they used to come out all the time. And for a really long time, I hadn't seen anything. So I was like, so I thought there was nothing coming out. So then I happened to run into the Freedom mag editor, and I'm like, hey, how come there haven't been any Freedom magazines out for so long? And he's like, oh, well, no, there have, but they've been for external public. And I'm like, external? What is that? Like, you can't see them? Like, what does that mean? And it made me even more curious what they were saying in these Freedom magazines, because they put out like a whole thing on Mike Rinder, and I think a whole thing on Marty and like some other people. And they didn't want people in the Sea Org to see this. but it makes you even more curious when they're like, oh, it's for external public. And I'm like,
yeah.
exactly.
Even Mark Headley told a story once. Now, it's not my story, so I might be recounting this incorrectly, but I seem to remember him saying about there was a time he'd been out for a while and he went, past someone in a parking lot or something who was a Scientologist, and he wound down his window and said hello, and they came running over. Oh, Mark, how they had no idea he'd left.
Yeah,
They just thought he'd gone on some mission or something.
Yeah, I think that I think he went to the Denver org and he ran into somebody out. He ran into a Sea Org member who was doing a project in one of the orgs that are like out in the various cities. And he ran into her outside of the org and was like, hey, how's it going? And she didn't. Yeah, that's right. She didn't know that he left. He got like all this information from her, like, oh, what's happening with this and what's happening with that. And she's like thinking that he's like still a cold staff member.
So funny. I just want to bring up this Lythander Grauklinger. Thank you for your super chat. She just said, we are really being spoiled. First Kelly this afternoon, now Alex. If this goes on, my flat will never get cleaned properly. Yeah, I don't know if you saw Kelly's.
Fantastic videos. I like her.
Yeah, she did her first live stream today, which was amazing. And it's just really nice to see these people join the community and talking out about Scientology. And that's the main topic we're going to talk about here, is what OSA do to combat critics and people who speak out against Scientology, because we all know about the hiring of private investigators and the harassment and this sort of thing. But they also work in some very sly, manipulative ways behind the scenes. And I think one thing to understand is OSA's tactic, like their valuable final product, their goal is to suppress all critics of Scientology. So they will do anything they possibly can to make that happen. And it doesn't always necessarily mean a direct overt operation of infiltrating SPTV or whatever, but they like to try and create conflicts and get us nattering. And, the more divided SPs can be, the less powerful they are. So they will do anything they can to try and generate that effect, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and we specifically wanted to come on here because we both independently observed recently and in the past, there's been a bit of like, I don't know, I guess you could call it trash talk. Like someone will get on a video or on a live and talk about something that some other ex-Scientologist is saying on their videos, or how they said something wrong on their videos, or they were somehow wronged by this person. And me and Alex were talking about this, and it just sets up an environment of like of discord, like and OSA's one of OSA's products, and one of their something they're trying to really do is disconnect us from each other. Like they don't want ex-Scientologists talking to each other, collaborating their stories, speaking together, and then maybe they get together and like, do like something to the press, or they get together and they decide they're going to do a lawsuit or whatever. Not that, whatever. I don't know. I'm not letting on to anything happen, but that's like something that they try to do is separate us from talking to each other. So,
which they try and do even in Scientology as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you experienced this, but they really didn't, not just OSA, but generally the church, don't like Scientologists talking to each other from outside their own little group. Like, we had a really good comm line, as they would say, like connection with Milano org in London, because at the time they were pretty much St. Hill size. They were smashing it in terms of book sales, and we were communicating with the Div 6 over there at the time to learn how they were doing so well at selling books. And we had this really good communication, and the guy came over to London to give a seminar on how he started to sell the book slightly differently with a new patter. And it was all with good intent, but Scientology really didn't like it because they don't like you talking to other people.
I found that out when I was in Columbus, and I was working on something that was called the non-existence campaign. I was working on marketing for Scientology Columbus and getting us better known and doing all these ads and things on TV and radio and all this stuff. And I was, and every single org that opens, like they open this brand new building and blah, 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 they get this campaign. And I was trying to find out what actually worked in other orgs. And I kept asking the question, I'm like, what has worked in other orgs? Nobody would talk to me. It was really hard to establish any sort of like network with other orgs. And I know from the time that I was in management that that's something that they don't like it when orgs do that, because they're like, oh, well, you should just go to L. Ron Hubbard policy and just apply the policy. You don't need to be like getting successful actions from other orgs because they might be totally wrong and not per policy. So everything's answered in policies, supposedly, even though it's not.
But also, surely you have faith in the ethics that if they were doing something off policy in another org, that would be handled with policy. So there shouldn't theoretically be any other orgs doing stuff off policy if you really believe that we're doing a good job in the church of suppressing wrong applications, you know?
Exactly.
But it's true what you're saying about this kind of division, and you know, we are not going to get into specifics of people and opinions on certain things.
We're not naming any names.
No, and we're certainly not here to debate anything like that. What we are here to do is talk about how this is an OSA tactic. And my whole point of it is, it's not like OSA, for example, if like one ex-Scientologist has a disagreement with another and they're both talking out about Scientology, like OSA don't necessarily need to overtly be involved in that relationship, but via infiltration. But if there is a disagreement or something, and then it's talked about publicly, that shows that we're not united. And that's exactly what OSA want. Exactly. And I think sometimes there's a tendency for people to fall into the trap almost of giving them what they want unintentionally, where they haven't had a say in it, they haven't caused the disagreement, but by being public about it, it shows that we're not united. And actually, the more united we are as a front, as a group, the stronger we are. And that scares them even more. You know, the more stuff we do together, the more people speaking out, the more people on SPTV, the more channels there are, we're overwhelming them with stuff to watch and write reports on. And that's only a good thing. We're all here to do the same thing. We don't have to agree with everyone else's way of doing it. The way I talk on my channel and present information is different to other people. And that's the benefit. Everyone has their own interpretation and viewpoint. And that's the good thing. We don't have to all agree on the same way of delivering the message, because we're all just trying to achieve the same thing, right?
Exactly. And there's so many different stories and viewpoints, and everyone has their own experience from when they were in Scientology, and some people were never even in, and they're interested in speaking about it, like Poe on the Go. He's great, and he was never in, and he likes to talk about it and do what he can to help. Yeah. And there's other people like that too. And I just think it's interesting because it's everyone was most people were in different organizations at different levels, different times. Like there's people that left in the 80s that I'm talking to, and I left like a few years ago. So it's very interesting for them to see like how things have changed and how things have actually, like they've changed things within the church because of people speaking out. Like they don't take people's passports anymore. At least in LA, they don't take and keep people's passports anymore because it's not legal. They don't do that anymore. Yeah. You know, the RPF doesn't exist anymore because of everyone who spoke out.
Yeah, I remember when I was being recruited into the Sea Org and signed my contract and everything, one of the reservations I had was I remember saying to the recruiter, I was like, look, because I was meant to go to Flag and join the Sea Org over there, and then apparently go straight to Gold, which we both know would never have happened. But that's the dream they sold me. But essentially, I was like, look, the one reservation I do have is that I'm signing this contract. I want to commit my life to Scientology, be in the Sea Org and all of this, but I also want my passport, because if for whatever reason anything does ever happen, I want to be able to like get on a plane and go back to another church or go home or whatever. And I was a bit concerned about giving up my passport. And at the time, it was very much a thing they still did. And then towards the end of my time there were people going to flag and stuff for Superpower and Golden Age Tech 2. And they were saying, no, they don't really do that anymore. They don't take your passports. And, you know, you can
and that's because people like us have like said, hey, they stole my passport, and enough people said it where it's like, oh, we can't do that anymore, you know.
And I think also you look at it, OSA's tactics here in the UK. Bonnie Woods is a former Scientologist. She was American and moved to the UK, and she started speaking out about Scientology and actually took them to court because they were following her here in the UK, hired private investigators, intimidating her, and she won the court case. It was a harassment case, and they had to issue an apology and give her a financial settlement because they were harassing her. And it was a monumental law case in the whole Scientology OSA thing. But because of that, they really backed off. And I think here particularly, they're a lot more cautious with their noisy investigations because they've already lost a lawsuit about it. So I think they're even more cautious about doing it here because they don't want to be looked on even worse than last time. And that's a direct result of something that an SP has done. They have changed their tactics. If it wasn't for Bonnie Woods doing that, they would still be doing noisy investigations. And I'm sure they still do things, but they think twice because of the action of an SP, which is a great thing.
Exactly.
It's interesting as well what you're saying about people from the 70s and 80s that were in Scientology. I've spoken to so many former SEAL members from St. Hill and so on that had left, and they spoke out in the early noughties, 2009, that sort of time, and haven't really done anything for a while. And all of them are saying that, they've noticed a change in how they operate within Scientology and also externally with OSA over time. So it's just a sign that what we're doing here does have an effect, right? Just sharing stories on YouTube is helping people get out, it's helping people recover, and it's scaring them. Because didn't you say there was one person whose job it was to watch all of these videos and basically write reports on them? That was their full time
job. I know there was a few people who in OSA who are assigned for internet monitoring, but I'm sure it's like now it's probably like there's like so many people who have to do it.
That's the thing. There's
public
so much.
Whatever. They probably get public to do some of it now.
Yeah, because there's so much going out there at the moment. Like there's not enough Scientologists, especially on staff, to read, transcribe, report, and then figure out what we're going to do about it. Like there's just not enough. So actually, one of the best tactics is to overwhelm them with content.
Exactly. Yeah, like I don't even know anymore what they're going to be looking for us to say. Like everything, like all the confidential stuff, all the confidential levels and everything is already totally available on the internet. So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
What more are you anyway?
Yeah, one of OSA's tactics, we were talking about like kind of the things they do and the way they operate. Obviously, they do their overt noisy investigations and following people with PIs and so on. But another thing they like to do is threaten like everything and anything. I've spoken to press here in the UK that wanted to run a story, and they have to request a comment from the church, and from that point onwards they were threatened with, this is literally in the last month, like threatened with lawsuits galore and like, you can't publish this. But so they were trying to scare this publication just with threatening legal action. And this publication are happy to fight it and all of that. And they also, you have to realize that Scientology haven't ever won a jury trial ever. They haven't taken someone to court in a very long time, but they're just trying to scare and intimidate people.
I'm like mesmerized by your microphone turning colors, by the way.
Sorry, is that better?
It's awesome. I love it.
It's very cool. I need to, there is a software that you can change the colors, but I don't, I need to update it and do that. But yeah, it's very cool. I love this mic. But yeah, so OSA try and operate in any way they can to scare and intimidate, but also, like we're mentioning, this division that they like to cause amongst people. I think the message that we're trying to get across here is we don't have to all agree with everything we're all doing, right? The way that I think the best way, or the way that I want to share my message and story about Scientology, is different to Aaron Smith-Levin or Doug Kramer or Tony Ortega or Mark and Claire Headley. Like, we've all got our own ways.
Might be different too.
Yeah.
And I think if people have a beef with each other or whatever, just please take it up, privately, not publicly. And so it doesn't look like it's all a bunch of like, oh, he said this and he said that and blah blah did this to me 13 years ago, and you're just like, what? No, just take it up privately, please.
I think also, like, that's something OSA can exploit, because even though they're not necessarily involved in the disagreement themselves, if they know that I've got a problem with this person because I'm talking about it, then they will know that that's something they can exploit. So they will then figure out a way of, okay, how do we use that information to make the disagreement worse? And we're giving them fuel for their campaign. Whereas if we all appear as we don't need to all be best buddies and lovey-dovey, but we all need to realize, and this is one thing that I do whenever something annoys me that another YouTuber's doing, or I've read something I don't quite agree with, right? I just think of it, well, look, the end goal here, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're all trying to share stories about Scientology, tell the truth, share our experiences, and I don't have to agree with the way that person does it. We're all trying to do the same thing, and that's what's important. Right. And suddenly you realize that whatever's annoyed you is not like important, because they're just doing it a different way, and that's completely fine, right?
Exactly. I agree. So, and I like the thing that Mark says when he says he's like, what did he say? A rising tide raises all ships. Raises all ships. That's great. That's great. Bring everyone up.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, like, the more people we can get onto SPTV, the better, because we're all sharing different perspectives, right? I remember when I came out of Scientology, it was a long time before I started watching stuff on YouTube, and then it was a long time before I reached out to speak to someone and then shared my story and then started YouTube. Like, it's a very long process, and there are things that I would get from Chris Shelton's channel, and there are things I would get from Aaron Smith-Levin's channel. They were the only two at the time that I was aware of, and watching them, I would get different things from their different channels. And I decided to reach out to Chris Shelton and share my story with him. And actually, over the last 6 months, we've seen so many people now come out and share their stories. And it's just offering more opportunity for people who are in Scientology or who have left and are recovering to resonate with someone else's interpretation. My experience of Scientology in a Class 5 org in Div 6 is different to your experience in the Sea Org in America. And my experience in a Class 5 org is different to Gabriel Toth's experience in Canada, who is still in a Class 5 org, but her experience is different. And like, actually, the more of this that we have, the better, because it's just going to reach more people and resonate with them. And I think I'm loving the expansion and having we have Amy Scobie.
I love hearing everyone's stories. It's fascinating. Like, I just read Catherine Spallino's book that she put out.
Is that The Bad Cadet? That
one?
Is it good? I haven't read it yet.
It's funny because it reads a lot like Mark's book. Like it's just like all her experiences, like it's just like, this is what happened, and then this is what happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And it's really good. It's a good book. And she also did an interview with John Atack recently, which I thought was pretty cool. I was like, oh,
yes, I saw that.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We all have our own ways. Like, you aren't starting a YouTube channel, but you're happy to come on and speak to people, like we've done several times and will continue.
Yeah, I like just bouncing around on other people's channels.
And that's good, because you reach more people that way. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't think there's a burden on anyone who's left to speak out. And there's certainly not a burden to join SPTV. But if you start putting videos out, there's nothing but love and support for you. And I love hearing different stories. Yes.
I just saw this comment that I just want to say something about, just in case you miss it. Somebody says, okay, Educon, yes. Educon. Controversial thought, SPTV neglects survivors of other cults. if anybody, I'm sure if anybody from any cult survivor wanted to come in on your channel and speak about their experience, they could. I know Aaron went on Cults to Consciousness channel. I know that
Shalise is great. I love Shalise.
Yeah, I know Chris Shelton did several videos with they used to call them the 3 or the 4 apostates, and he had like someone from Jehovah Witness, Mormon, and then there's somebody else that, and they did several videos. It's like people definitely from these worlds collaborate and speak to each other, because it's all, the experiences can be very, very similar.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And I think it's just like you said, purpose earlier is such a good way of describing it, because you know, some people's goal might be to just talk about Scientology, and some people's goal, like Chris Shelton, is to educate people in coercive groups. So there's a lot more crossover there. And I'm still finding my feet with my channel. I don't quite know where I want to go with it. I mean, Scientology is something I can talk a lot about because obviously I was there, I knew it. But I'm not, you know, opposed to the idea of having other people on. And that's why I also interviewed Shalise from Cults of Consciousness, and I was on her channel. And actually, that's the best performing video I've ever done on YouTube, because it reached the Mormon audience and the Scientology audience. And it was just wild to see the similarities in their techniques. And that's why, you know, Combating Cult Mind Control by Steve Hassan is such a good book, because it really highlights that even though the beliefs are different, the techniques and the tactics are exactly the same.
Exactly. It's amazingly it's amazingly similar. And it's amazing that when you're in those groups and you look at like someone else and like in one of those groups and you're like, oh, we're nothing like that. And meanwhile, it's like almost exactly like what's happening, like what happens with Mormons is very similar to what happens, you know, with Scientologists, and just about the control aspect of things. And it's very, very similar. And you can really see that when you get out and you look at these different groups and you look at what was really happening or what is happening in Scientology, and you hear all these stories and you're like, wow, this is very, very similar. And then you read Combating Cult Mind Control, and well, you're like, wow, this is it on the nose.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to neglect these super chats. So Goldie, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have our Catherine.
Oh, thanks, Goldie.
Love is there.
Goldie's everyone everywhere. Loves you, I don't know how she does it.
She is. She's AI.
She's yeah, exactly.
I know she's not. I've seen
a picture of her.
I've had video calls with her. I know she's definitely not AI. She is a real person, and she's lovely. We love Goldie. Awesome. And another super chat here, Stacey Y. Thank you so much. Stay encouraged and keep overwhelming OSA with content. Love the UK perspective and smile the entire way. You might get someone else away from the abuse. That's so true. You know,
that's right. And I'll say it again, and I've said this on other interviews. When I was in the Sea Org, not out of the Sea Org, not out of Scientology. And I was watching these kind of interviews while I was there. And because I happened to be in a very unusual circumstance because of the lockdown, and because there was a whole bunch of Sea Org members that were sent out to Columbus to be staff in Columbus. And so I had a very unique experience, and I had the chance to watch a bunch of stuff while I was still in the Sea Org. And it helped me make up my mind, and it helped me like really see things that were going on that I wanted to get the hell away from. So it definitely helps.
Absolutely. There's a comment here. Mashmir Dokugal said, if you don't focus on the common ground, you're vulnerable to manipulation over small stuff. That's exactly what we're trying to say here is, you know, if you sweat the small stuff, that can be exploited by OSA. And that's what they want. They want us to be divided, because that means that we're conflicting with each other rather than focusing on what's important, which is Scientology, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's so true. I think it's, you know, I think the purpose of this is really just to, I don't know, almost give people a kick up the butt and go, come on, guys, right? Let's focus on what's important here, which is
and it's not like, oh, can we all be friends? It's like, okay, maybe you're not friends, but if you have a problem with somebody, please just take it up privately, not publicly.
Exactly. And that's something that you can't do in Scientology. In Scientology, you're not allowed to talk to each other about how you're
Exactly.
feeling. And if you've
Exactly.
got a disagreement with someone, you have to handle it. And there's the whole tone
Or
scale and
find the third party.
manipulation. Yeah, find the third. Whereas now we're out, we can make
Have you ever
use of.
done that, Alex? Have you ever been part of a third party investigation?
No, not officially.
I have several times.
Tell us
One
all.
of my seniors, when I was in what was called the Data Bureau, which is where they receive all the reports from the orgs, they receive all the statistics, and they organize that all up in different ways. And one of my seniors once, we got what's called it was an interrogation, interrogatory. And what it is it's a written thing that you fill out, like a questionnaire that you fill out, and it either asks you questions about, like, do you know anything about blah blah situation and something that's happening in the org, or it'll ask you about a specific person. And this was on a specific person, and it was on the senior of the Data Bureau. And so everybody filled it out, and he got removed from post because everybody was complaining about him. So, and be like, oh, have you seen, Wayne involved in any out ethics? Have you heard him natter about seniors or management or chairman of the board or L. Ron Hubbard, and just like all this stuff? And he got taken off this
You've just reminded me.
investigation.
So I have been a part of this. I remember it very, very well. I didn't know at the time that that's what it was, but so funny. I was actually speaking to someone who used to work at London Org at the same time I did the other day, and this person isn't ready to share their story or speak out publicly, but it's someone that I spoke to that I knew very well. And they brought this up, and I was like, oh my God, yeah. There was a time in London, or towards the end of my time on staff, where everyone got sick, right? There was a big sickness going around, and I wasn't sick, but everyone else was. And in Scientology, if you're sick, it's because you're PTS, you're connected to a suppressive person. That's the only
There's
reason
no
you're
such thing as germs.
No, not at all. It's all suppressive people. And I remember we all got pulled in to different meetings with ethics, and we were interviewed, and I was interviewed, and it was like, have you heard anyone talking bad about Scientology or interpolation or whatever? And it must have been exactly this, a third party thing where they were trying to figure out who the SP was. And I remember this was just before I left, and I was declared PTS, type D, potential trouble source. And this person I was speaking to the other day, who I was working with, told me that, yeah, after I got kicked out, they blamed the sickness on me. They said it's because I was PTS. That's why everyone in the org got sick.
Wow.
So yeah, this third party thing must have been one of the contributing factors as to kicking me out, which I never really considered before.
Yeah, I mean, remember, they can blame anything. They can literally blame anything on you. Once you're gone, they can just blame everything on you. I've heard that so many times. Like, oh, that came from this person or that person, and they're declared now, or they're out of the sewer, and we got rid of them. That's where that came from.
Yeah, this person was saying how funny it was because only a week beforehand they were saying how great I was and how good I was on my stats, and we were soaring in book sales. And then as soon as I was gone, they were like, yeah, Alex was rubbish. He was a PTS. He was such a bad person, blah, blah. He made everyone sick. But I will never forget, we were lining up to go into this ethics interview, and I saw my auditor. She was in front of me in the queue. And I saw, because we had to write down a list of like interpolation, like things that have for non-Scientologist people who have like got in the way or caused trouble or upset. And all I saw, just as a flash as I walked past, I saw my name on her list as she was going into the ethics thing. And I remember I wrote a report about it, and I said, I don't understand, because I thought what I said to my auditor was confidential and isn't meant to be shared with anyone. And I've only spoken to her about my upsets in an auditing session. So I'm a bit confused why she would talk about that in an interview with interpolating stuff that she's heard, because
Right.
it's an auditing session. I'm confessing or telling her what my problems are, and I didn't get a response to it. But I remember being baffled because I was like, here she is walking around the org with my name on a list of interpolation things that she's heard. And
yes, it's confidential until they need to use it against you in some way.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I heard many times when I was in the Syria, when I was in the Syria in LA, and I heard, you know, this or that person would blow or whatever, or you'd hear that someone's folders are in OSA, like all their folders get sent to OSA, including all. That's probably where my PC folders are now, are in OSA.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a funny comment. Where was it? L. Ron Hubbard said, "Oh, so dig up these two PCs folders ASAP while I go through them."
I wonder who that is.
I know he's someone from the UK,
Really?
from Manchester, I believe. He actually gave a super chat here. Do all you people here not understand SPTV is a cult? Take it from the source. Because that's L. Ron Hubbard referred to himself as source in Scientology.
That's right.
He's source, the source of all information, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything OSA wise you wanted to cover before we move on to the next thing I wanted to bring up?
I can't think of anything else. If I think of it,
I'm sure it'll come up. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to bring up, seeing as we have time, I found my folder of all of these documents from my time in the church earlier today, and I was going through it all, and there's so many fascinating things that I'll go through in separate videos. But one thing that I found, and I thought it'd be great to talk to you because you were also in Div 6 on the public lines in the church, was this thing. It's longer term BP for book sales, right? Now, BP stands for battle plan. And in Scientology, because we're all on a mission like the Navy, it's always a battle. It's not a to-do list or a strategy, it's a battle plan, right? And so you would have like a weekly BP, you know, how are we going to smash book sales this week? And then we'd have a longer term one. And so this is the longer term battle plan that we did. And it goes into like, you know, how I planned to sell books. And it talks a lot about social media. You know, we've talked previously about how you're not allowed to be on social if you're in Scientology. And I started this thing with Charlie and tried to get on Instagram and use it to sell books. And this was the battle plan that started it all. So step one was reviews. And it said, my first action, get staff to write a paragraph or more on Dianetics about their personal wins and how good it is, and if they'd recommend it. Collect the paragraphs and get FSMs, field staff members, so public who are also trying to get people in, to do the same. And then see if it's possible to upload someone else's reviews. If not, get staff and FSMs to submit them to Amazon on their own account, but staggered, so it looks natural. So target 5 reviews by Thursday at 2. So we wanted to flood Amazon with positive reviews about Dianetics, which I thought was funny.
Yeah,
and then the next one was social media. Collect success stories and other content for social media. And also it mentions here Toby. Toby is a guy who, I don't know what his post was, but he was a Sea Org member that was posted in London Org. And he was looking over stuff like dissemination. And it says in here that we were to give all of this to Toby, and he was kind of in charge of the social media stuff, which I thought was kind of weird. But yeah, keep taking photos of production and get Facebook likes and Twitters. Oh yeah, this is here. See Charlie to see if we can get Facebook likes and Twitter followers as a substat of Div 6.
Wow.
I wanted one of my stats as well as book sales to be social media engagement. How funny is that?
I couldn't even get on our social media at the org.
And that was your job, right?
I was in charge of promotion, and the only person who could use it was the director of special affairs.
Which would have been Mark Pynchon in London, I think. But yeah, I'm just looking at this again. Sorry, yeah. So another thing, like we wanted to do an event and put events up on social media, and you start publicizing the what you call it, the Dianetic seminar and that sort of thing. And this is all stuff that is now done. If you go on the Scientology London Facebook page, they put events up every week, like meetup events for their seminar. No one ever goes to them, but they put them as public events.
We started using Meetup when I was in Columbus. We started doing that, and we had to do it in a very sneaky way because we couldn't mention Church of Scientology anywhere on there. So we just had to put, I think we just put the address, or we put someone's phone number. We put like a cell phone number of one of the staff for them to call so that they wouldn't call in and get Church of Scientology. And it was all very sneaky. And then people would show up and be like, I didn't know I was coming to the Church of Scientology. And they're like, oh, and we're like, oh no, it's fine. And some people would stick around and some people would be like, nope, leaving.
Yeah, we would do it as Dianetic. We'd be Dianetics London, not Scientology London. We'd have the Dianetics London page, and that's what got people in, so it wasn't linked to Scientology.
Yeah.
But we also have book outlets here. You know how you said you would go around to different stores and like leave promo on the side of the stores? I've got one of the things we used to do is try and get bookshops to sell Dianetics, and we would do it on sale or returns. So we would go to these bookshops and give them a bunch of books and say, look, sell them at this price, and you keep this much money, and we'll just come and collect every now and then. And we have this whole plan here of like research bookshops. We wanted to create a game. Well, I wanted to create a game and say if a bookshop sells 25 books, can we give them a reward, right? To make it a game for them. Because in Scientology, it's all about games, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly,
I remember we went into some shops and we got them to have some of our books on consignment, like to buy the book and then they would resell it. I don't think anyone ever bought a book from that. And
I remember there was a Chinese shop that wellness shop that sold alternative medicine and vitamins and that sort of thing. And I remember going in and giving them Dianetics, the Chinese version, and tried to sell it as a health and wellness book. And they were like, okay, cool. And I remember they actually got annoyed and asked me to take the books away once because I was going in every week and asking, have you sold it yet? And they were like, no.
Like, leave us alone.
Yeah, after a while, they were like, please stop coming in here and asking if we've sold your bloody book. Like, just take it away. We don't want it anymore. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to tell my senior because I've messed it up? That's one less outlet now. Damn.
Yeah, we definitely, in Columbus, we sold a lot of books to like, because there was all these like little pockets of these foreign communities. Like there was like a lot of Nepalese people. They were fascinating people to talk to, by the way. I love talking to all these different people. There's a Nepalese community. There was a huge Somalia community, and Arabic, and like all these different things. And it was actually, we sold quite a few books to them. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that these people aren't necessarily like, I'm sure like a lot of people use the internet, but if they don't speak English as well, there's not like, someone speaking about what Scientology really is in Nepalese on some video that they're necessarily going to watch. You know what I mean? And even if it's like an English speaking person, I don't know if they can go like, oh, let me go check this out. And it was a lot easier to sell these books to people who
same. We would go to high Arabic speaking areas of London and sell about books in Arabic because they were less likely to put two and two together.
To know what it is, what it actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another super chat here. SD Cat Lover, thank you for your super chat. I learned different things from each of you. I was confused why it was shocking about Tom Cruise jumping on Oprah's studio sofa. He expressed feelings.
That's so funny. So many years later, people are still talking about him jumping on. So
it was an iconic
even
moment.
My grandmother mentioned it one time. She's like, I can't believe that he jumped on Oprah's couch. He's so weird. I'm like, people are just stuck on the couch jumping.
Look, you guys need to see what a staff meeting is like in any org. Like just 20 minutes sitting in one of those is like, I remember my first staff meeting just thinking, what on earth is going on here? because they would talk about like, and we've sold 20 books this week, and everyone would be like, yeah, whoa, amazing. And it's like, why are you so ecstatic about, okay, fine, all right. But it's just, it's so theta, and it gears you up and you're ready.
Enthusiastic, right?
Yeah. And it's a bit creepy, it's for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's start to try and wrap this up, because I know Aaron, I think, is live now. So
Oh,
let's
yeah.
take, if you've got any questions in the comments, put them in now and we'll go through them. There's a couple here that I've starred from earlier. Joel McCoy, great to see Catherine.
Aw.
What a great example of how great life can be when out.
Thank you. That's totally true.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with OSA, right? Trying to get us to divide and argue and bicker. Like, you know, the more we actually talk to each other and work together, the stronger we become, and the more that encourages other people to speak out about Scientology and share their experiences, because they realize that there is a support network and a community there for them.
Yeah, exactly. And there's plenty of people to talk to. I've met a lot of people through these interviews. Actually, people have reached out to me, and I've like talked to people on the phone and on text, and just anyone who ever wants to ask me anything, you're free to. Like I said, I guess you can put something in the comments, and I'll give you my email or something.
Yeah, or reach out to me.
Alex, he knows how
my
to
email's hello@apostatealex.com. Yeah, I'm more than happy to introduce people and all that sort of stuff. We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah.
Juliana here. I especially dislike when people go on a person's channel to say how they don't like them. I usually say, no one's forcing you to watch this person unless they're OSA.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like we were saying, everyone's got their own story and their own purpose for speaking, and it's most of it, if not all of it, I've seen is just to raise awareness and help other people and just say what they experienced, and if that's going to help someone, then great, you know.
Yeah. Precisely. Vicky Turner here is the divide and conquer strategy. That's exactly what it is. And so the more we don't let ourselves do that, the stronger we become. Like we said earlier, we don't have to be buddy, lovey-dovey with everyone. Like, as long as we are not letting them divide us, they won't conquer us, right?
Exactly.
Okay, last question before we start wrapping up here. Tina and the last 20. How would Scientology handle a happy person, someone with no real complaints?
Oh, that's easy. They would find something. They would find something that would be like their ruin. Like what is really holding them back? Maybe not messing up their life, but holding them back in life. Not letting them reach their full potential. And if it's somebody who's like, oh no, I'm totally happy. Okay, well, do you want that to carry on? We can teach you how to, improve yourself even more and be even better than you are. And they always have a route to go down. Chris Shelton just did this video about the personality test. And I think someone asked a question like what would happen if someone, like, is there a way to take the test where like nothing really comes up? And I've studied the manual on how to interpret that test and give people's results in great detail. And there's really nothing, that the test is designed in such a way where you can take any point and be like, oh, this shows that you're, withdrawn, or you're not really, doing all you can do, or you're afraid to commit, or whatever, like any point. And then they're like, well, Scientology can help you with that. And if you're like, no, I'm good. Well, it's like a whole drill on how they like really try to get to you and show you that something is wrong with you, and Scientology can handle it.
Yeah, I did a video with Kellycopter, actually, on Kellycopter's channel. We dissected the personality test in a similar way to Chris Shelton, and I read through I basically delivered her personality test to her with the pattern and everything, which is so fun to do. Wow. Like just remembering how we used to do it, and it was really great video. Go and check it out. But one of the things that we would say was, if we can't find out what their ruin is, if you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? because
Right. Yeah.
everyone's got something.
That's
And
right.
even if it's something like small that's not really a problem, you would get it to be a problem for them.
Right.
You would get
Right.
them to make more of a deal of it than it actually is. And then you can say, well, Scientology will fix it. You know, if someone says, oh, well, you know, I feel like I'm not a very confident public speaker. That's not ruining someone's life,
Yeah.
right, necessarily. But you would be like, well, what if this happened? And what if this happens? And then that will develop to this. And therefore, then it'll be a really bad problem. And they'd be like, oh, yeah. And, you know, and you don't want that, do you? So here, buy a course. And it's like you've
Right.
made this small thing a big life problem in this conversation just to
Exactly.
sell them Scientology.
Exactly. And then if you happen to be, if you, I don't remember what the answer was on this, but if you happen to be someone who like has like all the points above center, like all the points are good, it's like you're theedy weedy, or you're I don't know how to describe that in layman's
Yeah,
terms.
it's kind of, you know, if your graph is all at the top, it's like, well, you're not answering it correctly or right, or you're, you know, just lying, or
You're
you're
just
not
off in
actually
some
being
other
honest.
universe on some like
Yeah, on your own.
non-existent little
Yeah, you're in the
cloud,
kind
and
of
you think
clouds.
everything's great.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
not actually confronting life, right? It's
Exactly.
crazy. But
Exactly.
all right, well, thank you so much, Catherine. Is there
Yeah.
anything you want to cover before we end off here?
No, I think that's about it, but we should definitely do this again. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. People love having you on, and you're welcome anytime. We should do
Great.
more of this 100%. Before we do end, I just need to say to everyone, I am launching a podcast called That's So Fucked Up every week. It's hosted by someone called Ashley Richards, who's got this well-established podcast, and we have teamed up and we're doing a weekly segment on dissecting Scientology, and it's like a not comedic, but taking a light-hearted, fun look at how fucked up some of this stuff is.
Yeah.
And it's coming out every Wednesday. So the first episode will be dropping literally pretty much straight after this. It will be a live premiere, so I'll be in the live chat. Go and check it out. And yeah, stay tuned for that every Wednesday. And Catherine, I'd love to have you on again anytime.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Don't forget to
everybody.
like, share, subscribe, all of that, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you guys very soon.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.